Hi, everybody, and welcome to Around the Writer's Block. It's a show for writers and for people who aren't writers. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Everyone is a writer. You may not know you are, and whether you write for pay or for play, you're a writer. The fact that you're watching this on social media means that you're a writer because you write on Facebook. Writing is just a way of getting your thoughts across to yourself or to others. And we're going to learn some tips along the way, and we're going to talk to people who are either writing books or have written books. And we're just going to have fun with it. So I hope you enjoy it. And today's guest is a very special guest. Her name is Ariane Black. She is a magician who has traveled the world with her magic. Um, she could have written a book about traveling the world with her magic, but she didn't. She could have written a book about her life in magic, but she didn't. What she did do is something that I personally find very, very interesting. She is working on a book dealing with women in magic. And we're talking about going all the way back to way before I was born, which, and if most of you know that, there's a very small space in there. She's going to go back, 100 years or so. It was a small space where I wasn't born yet. So, with that in mind, I'm going to bring on Ariane, and she is going to talk to us about what it's like to work on this book, which will be published soon. So,
Are
and
you
by the
ready
way,
for me?
I'm ready for you. And this is live broadcast, and things could happen, probably will happen, but we're going to see what happens. And here we go.
Woohoo!
There
Well,
she is.
I'm Ariane, like Mark said, and there's a famous quote that everybody has a book in them, and I didn't think that I had a book in me at all until I got really tired of people saying, "Oh, you must be the first female magician in history." And I kept telling people, "No, there's tons of female magicians in history." And nobody believed me because nobody's seen any information, nobody knows anything about them. And so I started doing research, and I found over 200 names of female magicians that date actually back into the 1600s. So I've got one or two from the 1600s, only a couple in the 1700s, but then in the 1800s, well, that's, newspapers are more common. So now we've got newspaper articles about people, and you can search by names. Although I will say, because of the way newspapers were originally typeset, you have to go and you have to look at all the variations of how a name can be spelled.
Well,
Because
I was gonna ask you about that because a lot of the questions I get when people want to write books or whatever is, how do you start researching? And in the era of online search engines, it's easy, but you
it's
still
not
have to
easy.
know what you're doing.
Right. You
So,
still have to know what you're doing. So I actually deal with 4 museums. I have a professor down in the United States, as well as another one over in France that I
you're in
deal with.
Canada, by the way, right?
I am in Canada.
There you
I
go.
am dealing with the Library of Congress in the United States. I'm dealing with Auschwitz. I'm dealing with uh, there's a similar. It's the library, the Victoria Library of something in Australia, and so I'm dealing with all these different entities to find information, as well as shopping on eBay. Now, I know you're thinking, what? She's
Wait,
shopping on
wait, wait,
eBay.
wait, wait, wait. That's just an excuse.
It
Shopping
is.
on eBay. Come on.
It is. So what I do is here. I'll show you. So each woman gets a folder, And I don't write it on the folder until I know more information about that person. So like right now, this Vanita Star just has a little piece of paper in it with the date and
Raise it up just a little bit so we can see.
oh, sorry. So the piece of paper has the date, has the person's name, has a little comment, and has the country that they're in. And so when I do start to do more research on this person, I know she's an escape artist, which wasn't on that piece of paper. But when I start to do more research, as that research comes up, then I will put her name in solid at the top. But for right now, it's just a Post-it note, because if I only find one or two pieces of information and I can't get more, then do I put her in the book when there's 200 names, or do I leave her out?
Okay,
So,
now that brings up an interesting point. You're researching, you're doing all this electronic research, actually, because you can't get out of Canada right now
right.
to go to these places, but you're going old school a little with folders and post-its and things like that.
Yes. So, like I said, eBay. Okay, so this is Mademoiselle Ditka's folder. And oddly enough, people don't care about collecting their images. So, magicians, there's two very famous Mademoiselle Ditka photos or posters that are out there that every magician has seen, and they know what these two posters look like. But in my research, I found two actual images. These are postcard sizes, and I found these, and these are from 1900.
Now, what makes her interesting?
So she was a female magician. She was from France, and she mostly did magic in burlesque type shows. But she traveled all over Europe working as a magician. And it's funny because nobody in present day knows what she looks like. You guys do now. And so that's why I go shopping on eBay. The other reason, this is same with Mademoiselle Ditka. This is a tear sheet from a show that she did. And so it's got her photo, the information about her. It's a tear sheet from a magazine from, let's see, when is this?
Yeah, I was going to say, when
August
was
22nd, 1906. So, yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this. 1906, she was performing.
Yep.
But we never heard about her.
No, so you've never heard about her, but in 1906, she was working all over the world.
How come we hear about? Now, here's a question for you. How come we hear about Houdini, but we've never heard her name?
Houdini was very good at publicizing himself, and he was very good about doing publicity stunts when he would come to town. Whereas this woman, Mademoiselle Ditka, but here, wait a minute. Whereas this woman, Mademoiselle Ditka, she's already hired to be in the show. She's doing her 12-minute act. She's not doing anything else. She's already getting paid. So does she have to do the advertisements like Houdini did? Now, Houdini did those advertising because he was doing solo shows. She was working as an act in shows. Yes. So it's very different.
From your research, were you able to ascertain whether or not people accepted her as a magician in the same way that they accepted male magicians?
So in 1906, she started doing real theater. And I mean, magic is real theater, but she started doing, King Lear and being on big stages in productions. And she became more of an actress.
It's funny. In your research, how many female magicians did you find?
Like I said, I found over 200. And that's only going back so far as like I said, the 1600s, but I stopped at 1960. So I wanted historical female magicians. I wanted female magicians that have passed away. So, like, here's a magician from the 1950s. That's Celeste Evans. And she traveled all over the world. She was very famous. She did USO shows. She did command performances for kings and queens. And here's the thing, I've done command performances for kings and queens. How many of your viewers have heard of me?
That's true, and it brings up an interesting point. Is without getting too, you know,
More eBay shopping.
more eBay shopping. You're trying to throw me here. Is the magic industry a good old boys club?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really is. And because it's a good old boys club, and, the victors write the history, women get written out of the history books in magic.
And
But,
yet, oh, go
but,
ahead.
but. So there's a very famous book, and book collectors from all over the world who don't even do magic collect this book. And the reason that they collect it is because it is the very first book ever to be printed with photographs in it. And that was right around 1900. And there's I think there's 4 magicians or 5 magicians in that book that donated material. One of them was a female. And so the book has all these photos. She donated 9 routines to the book. So there's all these photos of her with this routine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But and she was a headliner, you're saying?
She was not a headliner. Um, she did do a lot of shows. She did a lot of shows. But was she a big featured headliner? No, she wasn't. But like Miss Blanche was a big featured headliner. She was the star of the Moulin Rouge in Budapest. She was the magician for the royal court of Yugoslavia. And then World War II hit, and she was Jewish. She ended up in Auschwitz.
Really?
Yeah.
And I know a little bit from what I've read or whatever from talking to you. How did she survive Auschwitz?
Well, when when the war hit, she actually went on the run. Her husband was one of the first people in the first wave, taken and sent to a death camp, and he died within 6 months at the death camp. And her mentor, she was in Holland at the time, and her mentor, the SS came to his door, and he was only half Jewish, and he shot himself in the head. So she went on the run, and she changed her hair color and everything else. And 2 years before the war ended, she was captured. She was sent to Auschwitz. She was given the option of um, kind of being a lover to this one guy, and he would, keep her out of the death camp, and she refused. So she went to the camp, and she was sent to Building 10. We have all this information. With Auschwitz, it's amazing how well they have tracked these people and their names and everything. So we know that she ended up in Building 10. In Auschwitz, she was called the Wolf. Now, the historians for Auschwitz don't know why she was called the Wolf. They just know that she was Ruth Wolf and that they referred to her as the Wolf. So they've been trying to find that out for me. But so she survived by doing magic tricks for dignitaries and German officers that would come to Auschwitz, and they would
Really?
basically toss her scraps of food from the table, and that's how she stayed alive. When she was liberated, she weighed 65 pounds.
You're kidding. I did not know.
Yeah.
And
So
that was with being on their good side, apparently. But
that was being on the good side, yeah. And so she remarried, and she ended up coming to America. And we know that she lived in Illinois for a while, but I have not, and we know she died in like right around 1983, but I have not been able to find her um, tombstone. And so on the internet, there is a site where you can actually look through death records and tombstones and um,
really,
uh, uh, graveyards. You can look through graveyards. Yeah.
really.
Hmm.
So all this research that you've done so far on these 200 magicians,
Yeah.
um, and they you said they go back what 300 or 400 years.
Yeah.
In I guess what I'm looking for is, did anyone stand out as a magician who said, "I don't want to be in the shadows anymore. I'm going to show you what I can do," and changed it for female magicians from that point, kind of like
Oh, yeah.
a Rosa Parks
There's been
moment.
quite a few. So like this, Darling Jenny, and so it's Jennifer Whiteside, and from New Zealand, and she was a huge touring star who ended up dying at the age of 19.
Really,
So yeah, so she was born February 5th, 1855, and she died January 17th, 1875. So she was 20.
she was 20
Um,
years old. How did she change female magic?
so she had her own touring show. It was this big giant touring show with all of her own props and assistants and everything else. And she is considered the first touring magician um, in New Zealand. Period.
And she was a
So
teenager, basically,
yeah,
for most of that.
yeah. I'm looking for the Fox sisters. The Fox sisters are the sisters that invented spiritualism, and so as a joke, which is how a lot of things start. Um, as a joke, she said, or the two sisters, actually, there were three sisters, but mostly two. One of them could crack her toe knuckles. So, and she could do it really loudly, really loudly. And
I'm
so,
sure that got people's attention.
well, what they did was they told their mother that they were contacting the dead, and that the toe cracking was so loud that the mother thought it was like a knocking, and that's how her daughters were talking to the dead, and that was 1840. And so that was the invention of spiritualism, which changed the world. I mean, people still believe in ghosts and all the other crap.
Right.
So, oh, Miss Mills from 1839. She was a teenager, had a touring show with her father, was doing magic, fell in love with this guy in Boston. Turns out that he was already married, didn't tell her, robbed the father with the daughter, and ran off with the daughter, refused to marry her because, again, he was already married. She ended up in an insane asylum where P.T. Barnum came and got her and said, "You're going to do magic for me." And she became Mary Darling on stage. And because her father had sold everything. Her father, when she ran off with that guy and all the money, they left the father with all the bills. So he sold all the props, everything. So P.T. Barnum put a show together, or an act, and she did an act in his Curiosities show.
I'm kind of curious. These women have incredible backstories,
Yeah.
and you've been looking into 200 of them. How do you keep yourself from writing the Encyclopedia Britannica of female magicians? Because there's a lot there.
I am writing the, um, and so it's going to be a huge book. but it'll be a coffee table book. So I'm not giving a ton of information about these women. I'm just giving enough to tease people and get them more interested. And so here, I'm going to pull this woman out. Hold on. And so the woman I just pulled out is Madame Bosco. Now, there are two Madame Boscos. There's one from 1850.
Popular name. Okay.
It was because there was a very famous male magician from Spain. Spain or Italy. Anyway, who was a famous magician. And so he's kind of spawned a whole bunch of Boscos. Anyway, this is Madame Bosco. And so like this here. So you can see it says advertisement, short write-up advertisement. So what it is it's when she came from England to America, she worked nonstop from the day she landed till the day she died. And so this is a list for me so I can go back into all the newspapers and pull all of that out. But what I wanted to show you from 1859.
Really? So
yeah.
That
and
is.
So what this does more than one thing for me. Now, for you, you just look at it and go, oh, it looks like a ticket to a show, right?
Right.
But for me, I see what she's wearing as a costume. I see that she's performing the cornucopia trick with all the stuff coming out. I see that she's got the sharpshooter trick. Sorry, I'm going backwards here because I'm not looking. Sharpshooter. I see that she's got the bottle trick, the multiplying bottle trick. I see that she has a blooming orange tree, which was it's still a very, very famous trick. She's got a couple other things in here. She's got the 5-star with the cards. And so what it does is now I know what trick she did.
See, and that takes not only research, but a little bit of forensic investigation.
Right. And so I might not think of myself as a writer, but I'm really good at doing this research. And I've never researched before. Never. But when you dig, you have to dig through every possible avenue. And so, I have all these access to different things. And one of the other things that I have access to is, I know this is going to sound, but circuses, of all things, circuses, do logbooks. And when I say that a circus does a logbook, they do a book that is anywhere from 200 to 600 pages long. And the beginning of the book, so the beginning of the book is before the circus even leaves town. They list all the equipment, all the performers, exactly what they're doing. If they're going by train, how many train cars, who's the engineer, who's the roustabouts are the guys that set up the circus. They list everything and everybody. And then they list the days. It's like so the guy who's running the circus for the owners, because there's a guy who will travel with the circus as like the manager for the circus, and he will make a daily log of, and he doesn't make daily log of things that go right. He makes daily log of things that go wrong or things that had to be covered. And so you can find female magicians through that. And what's really interesting, what made me find it, was in 1880 or 1897. Now, when P.T. Barnum, when they toured, they would put a circus together because it was such a big circus. They would put a circus together, and then it would tour North America, and then it would tour South America, and then it would tour Europe. So a tour was 3 years long for them. Now, other circuses, their tours would be, a month, 6 months, a year. But P.T. Barnum and his circus, it would tour for like 3 years, and then he would set up a new one, and then that one would tour following the other one. And then once that first one was done at the end of its 3 years, then he would, he'd already be getting ready to start another one. So anyway, go back to 1897. He puts together an almost all female circus. So there were female clowns and female magicians. There was a female ringmaster. Everything was female. And so in that, there's all this information about female magicians. And they had a Japanese female magician that toured with the show.
Really? Well, let me ask you this, because we're coming to the end of the show. It seems like in your research, it went far beyond what you expected it to be. I mean, you started learning more about P.T. Barnum, the circus, and the information there, and other things. Were you surprised at the directions that your research took you as you were putting this book together?
I was definitely surprised that there was the amount of information out there about a lot of these women, especially from the 1800s. I found like the two people that I found from the 1700s. One of them is a woman from Paris that had her own show in the heart of Paris. She had her own show that she did nightly. And yet nobody's ever heard of her.
Really?
So, and there's images and documentation and everything else. And so, yeah, it's amazing some of the stuff that I found.
In doing this research, you kind of get a better picture of how female magicians have evolved throughout the ages. What do you see for us now? How do you think that all this will... Wait, put that up again.
How all this will what?
I want to know how all this will play out. Will female magicians take a more prominent role in the future, or will it still always be an all boys club type of thing?
I think until there's a female magician that makes it big on television, that we will always be in the shadows.
But television is getting to a point where it is shrinking.
It is.
And going online, and
yeah,
you can go on TikTok and make bigger waves and have a bigger audience than on a TV show.
You can. But
is social media the way for...
It is. For me, magic doesn't translate well on things like that. So most of what you're seeing on those things are, they're manipulating the footage. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah,
venues like Vegas, we're opening up again. I'm here in Vegas.
Yeah.
You've lived in Vegas, Vegas. Is this the way that female magicians will have their platform in performing live and that sort of thing?
There will always be female magicians performing live in shows. There will always be. Whether we'll be heard of or known, that's yet to be seen. So the image that I held up, Omni.
Yeah.
When I do a Google search of her, for just a plain Google search, there's one poster that pops up. That's it. But when I start to do an in-depth search of her, there's over 3,000 newspaper articles about her.
Really?
That's how big she was. And so this little card, it's not, you can see it's a tiny little card.
Yeah.
And so it's compared to I'll show you, compared to the postcard. There's the postcard. There's the...
Let me get you a little bit on there. There we go.
So now you can see how small this image is.
Gotcha.
So this image, this particular image of Omni, um, there's only a couple of this specific image. I bought this the other day on eBay for $3.
Really?
Um, because people didn't know who she was or what she was, and they didn't care, which is great for me.
Great,
But
great for you. But for the legacy of women in magic, um,
you know what? I bought these for $3.
well, it has been fascinating hearing about the book. We look forward to seeing it soon. Um, I personally hope, this is a personal desire of mine, to see female magicians take more of a center stage than they have.
I do too.
Um, and hopefully we'll see that in the future.
Yeah.
People, generations change, and hopefully the next generation of, you know, kind of
I
us.
I liken it to this. 100 years ago, you would not have gone to see a female doctor. And now you don't think anything of it. Just like female lawyers. Why magic is so far behind other things like that, I don't know. I really don't. Except that it is an all boys club. Um, and so we'll see what happens 100 years from now. Unfortunately, I won't be here, but
Well,
this book will be.
and I'm hoping that this book will inspire other young women to maybe go on stage and, just like the female magician who created a name for herself as a teenager, they will realize that they can create a name for themselves and age doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just the desire and the perseverance. Arian
Yep.
Black, I thank you very much. It has been I have to say it, magical experience.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
have to say it,
hopefully
and
your
people are
viewers had
groaning.
fun.
I hope they did, and they're probably groaning right now. But yes, I had to say that. Uh, but it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing your book coming out really soon.
Thank you. And thanks for letting me chat with you.
My pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'd like to leave you with a closing thought that writing, whether for pay or play, may not shower your life with riches, but I guarantee it will enrich your life. And so, until we meet again and go around the writer's block, stay safe, my friends. Bye bye.